China is an authoritarian capitalist country. And I know from here it seems like they have it better than we do, and frankly, they probably fucking do.
The Western media always accuses China for being an authoritarian communist regime. But what if I tell you that the current day China is actually the Frankenstein's monster that was created by the civilized world?
Hello amazing viewer, delighted to have you once more at Comfort for Life. I bring to you compilations of TikTok and Red Note videos for educational purposes. If you are new here, consider subscribing, and to my returning viewers, I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for keeping it up here. You guys are the real MVPs. Based on the observations I've made, I've come to a conclusion that there are two categories of people who are making such statements towards governance in China. The first category are the people who have noticed a tremendous change in China, and they're wondering what could be the system that is in place, and they just seek to understand. And another category is, yes, they understand what is happening there, but also they make statements to bash them, to show them you are inferior. I read a comment that was reading that China would go backward if it wasn't for American democracy. So I am not doing this compilation to compare two governments, but I just want to address these two categories of people. I don't know which one do you fall into, but I am here for those who want to learn. Because if you come with your preconceived ideas, sometimes it's hard for you to even get to learn. These are Chinese people who understand how the governments work. Kindly like the video for recommendation, subscribe if you're new here, and let's dive into this.
China should be a model, especially when it comes to environmental governance. And it could be, if the self-proclaimed democratic regimes of the world would get over their neo-colonial need for global domination.
In 1840s, the UK used opium to force China to do trade with them and took away Hong Kong. In 1890s, Japan managed to defeat China in the First Sino-Japanese War and took away Taiwan Island. After that, more Western countries saw how weak China was. They started to turn their consolidated area into colonies and started to send missionaries to China to convert people to Christianity. But when the Chinese locals started to fight back and started the Boxer Uprising, those countries got really upset. Those Western countries started to send troops to China to defend their own citizens. Very ironic, right? And then the Eight-Nation Alliance forced China to sign the Boxer Protocol, and China needed to pay lots of silver to compensate those countries' loss in China. We're talking about tons of silver here. And that's not it. After China won the First World War with its alliance, China's rights were fully neglected. More Chinese lands were turned into colonies and were given to Japan. Before the start of the Second World War, China had already been fighting with the Japanese troops on Chinese land for years. After Japan was defeated, the Soviet-backed Communist Party and the America-backed Nationalist Party started a 4-year civil war. Eventually, the Nationalist Party lost the civil war and they withdrew their troops to the Taiwan Island. And the People's Republic of China officially took over the power of the Republic of China on mainland China. And during the Korean War, the United Nations Army managed to push the battlefront all the way to the border with China. Although China was super poor back then, we still managed to defend ourselves. And then we broke up with the Soviet Union in 1960s and pretty much lost all the external support that we could get. China finally got the chance to return to the United Nations in 1970s. Over the last 25 years, China has made some great achievements. I'm not trying to brag on behalf of the government or anything, but I just want to point out one thing. When you were saying that China needs democracy and the freedom of speech, were we given the chance to choose that when you were invading us?
China is an authoritarian capitalist country. And I know from here it seems like they have it better than we do, and frankly, they probably fucking do.
Political scientist specializing in China here. I'm writing my PhD on the Chinese policy process, but I'm also autistic, which means China is not only the subject of my PhD, it is my special interest, and has been for the last 18 years. It got so bad at one point when I was 16 that the charity I was working for banned me from using the word China. Now, I criticize China fairly regularly. Not as regularly as I criticize the British regime, but I think I criticize China more than enough to justify saying a few words in this massive country's defense. No hate to the creator of Stitched. Actually, thank you to both you and my mutual who tagged me in your video for dragging me out of my content creation slump and giving me an opportunity to share some of my research and info dump about this incredible country. The context behind this uncharacteristically unhinged video is that I left my research cave this month. I visited my best friend in Amsterdam. She is a circular economy girly, so I was super excited to tell her about this environmental pilot I've been researching. Chinese regime, and remember, regime is not shorthand for a bad or repressive government. It is a term that helps us locate the centre of political power in a country. In this case, the central party state located in Beijing. The Chinese regime faces a lot of serious structural problems. My PhD looks at how local governments across this vast and diverse country experiment with different ways of solving those problems. Say what you will about the civil and political consequences of Chinese authoritarianism, or as I like to think of it, the Chinese approach to democratization. When it comes to environmental policy, no other nation can compare. I give you the Xinjiang-Hanjiang Interprovincial Pilot, an eco-compensation project for solving water pollution problems. Now, China is huge, and competition between different jurisdictions is intense, especially at the provincial level, where local leaders are competing for that final promotion to the absolute top jobs in the country. Provincial governors will do just about anything to prove themselves worthy. Rather than allowing provincial leaders to battle it out, the central regime in Beijing, see why the term regime is important here? We need to be able to separate between the highest power holders under top-level design and the many, many levels of local government underneath it. The regime wants to control competition. It wants to make sure that it is productive rather than destructive. It wants to avoid involution, 内卷. Enter eco-compensation projects. The Ting River runs through Fujian province in southwestern China, where it merges with several other Fujian rivers to form the Han River, which runs through Guangdong province. If local governments in Fujian engage in activities which pollute the Ting River, Guangdong suffers for it. If Fujian invests in cleaning up its rivers, Guangdong reaps the rewards. So the regime imposed an interprovincial pilot on Guangdong and Fujian, in which Guangdong fiscally rewards Fujian for upstream pollution control, literally paying Fujian for keeping the rivers clean. However, upstream environmental degradation results in fiscal penalties, and Fujian is forced to compensate Guangdong. The compensation funds paid by either province are specifically earmarked for environmental protection, which translates into a higher chance for provincial leaders to fulfill politically valuable environmental performance targets, and therefore a higher chance of being promoted to the top jobs in the country. As such, while its ultimate goal is cooperation and synergy between provinces, the pilot still capitalizes on the competitive tendencies of rational actors within a performance-based system. Which brings me back to my circular economy-obsessed bestie, who told me about this woman, who is looking into the impact of deforestation in Brazil on rainfall in neighbouring countries. Because so much of our water is stored in trees and released periodically into the air as water vapour, which forms clouds, which have absolutely no respect for man-made national borders as they travel across entire continents. Which means deforestation in one country can cause drought in another. The cost of environmental degradation in one jurisdiction is paid for by another. And suddenly, all of Xi Jinping's rhetoric about China providing an alternate model for governance worldwide starts to make a little bit of sense. China should be a model, especially when it comes to environmental governance. And it could be, if the self-proclaimed democratic regimes of the world would get over their neo-colonial need for global domination. I said what I said.
Do you want to know the difference between the US government and the Chinese government? In the Chinese government, you're not elected. You can't just be popular and to be in politics. You have to go through exams. You have to do really well in these exams. And then, when you get the job, you have to perform month after month, years after years, decades after decades, competing with hundreds and thousands and millions of other politicians. And then, if you go to all of that, you get to learn about law, you get to learn about economics, because most of the people who get into this are usually like scientists and engineers. They're not really lawyers or finance people, but they learn how it works, and then they apply those fundamental learnings in their day-to-day jobs to govern, to help the citizen. So yeah, that's the difference. It's not a popularity contest.
Highly propagandized Americans love to throw this bullshit around about China being an authoritarian dictatorship because they only have one party. But the people actually have direct say in policy in the country. We have two parties, but we have absolutely no say in policy. No matter who wins the election, the rich get what they want. Almost every Chinese person owns their home. Almost every Chinese person has savings. They save 30 to 50% of their earnings on average. Most Americans have no savings. The main freedom that China's taken away is the ability for rich people to steal from them and enslave them. China executes corrupt politicians and businessmen who steal from the people. Steal $400 million from Chinese citizens and see what'll happen to you. You won't be around much longer. What happens in America when you do that? Let's ask Rick Scott, the person who did the biggest case of Medicare fraud in the United States history. He stole billions of dollars from taxpayers, then got a golden parachute from his company after getting found guilty of this, of $400 million, then became a U.S. governor and is now a senator dictating policy. We are a kleptocracy. They would have killed that motherfucker. And rightly so. Maybe there's a reason the powers that be in the United States want you to think that China's bad. I'm just saying. So they're a surveillance state, you say. What do you think the United States is? What do you think the Patriot Act was for? Why is TikTok on Oracle servers? Oracle is a CIA project. They are monitoring everything we do on this app. We can't talk poorly about Israel. People are getting arrested and deported just for protesting a country that is committing genocide that is not our own country. America's a authoritarian dictatorship of the wealthy, and y'all just don't want to see it. Right-wing Americans love to project all the shit they want to do to other people onto their enemies. So all that stuff they say about China, I just expect the Republicans to do right now. And they're doing them. Bet your ass they're doing them. And say what you will about anything they do, China's made some amazing strides to pull their people out of poverty. China in 1950 was destitute. We were thriving. 20 years ago, China was coming up, but they weren't great. China today, they're amazing. The China of today is unrecognizable, but to the China that I went to 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, we were still on top of the world. And now what are we? Donald fucking Trump is the president, and we're led by idiots. There will be no improving this country under this current regime. We are backsliding as a democracy. Nothing is getting better. Okay, I'm on Team China. Look at that. Look at that. I'm on Team China. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hope that they conquer the world and give us some Mandarin lessons.
Were you educated from a young age that besides democratic regimes, there are only autocratic totalitarian regimes? Have you never learned that beyond democracy and autocracy, there is actually a third path called meritocracy? You can look it up. The difference between it and autocracy is that you must prove that you have the ability to be in that position. The selection method of Chinese leaders is indeed not universal suffrage, but starting from the grassroots, going through decades of experience, going through unimaginable efforts, and being promoted step by step through assessment. Those who can ultimately reach the top are the elite of the elite. This method is the same as the method of selecting scientists. If you think that the method of selecting scientists is not scientific enough, do you want to choose a scientist by universal suffrage? In that case, you can imagine what would happen if Trump became a scientist. Admittedly, Chinese leaders do have immense power, but as Peter Parker's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. Some say that Singapore is like a nanny government, and so is China.
Well, Jim John, seems like you have a pretty solid understanding that yes, the plan is to wholly dismantle the American system, the entire American system, because you are correct. Communism does not really fit into the electoral process as we have it now, where we basically don't get a say in anything. The donor class / owning class, bourgeoisie, write all of our laws. Like, you and I don't have a say in it. So yeah, the plan is a complete takeover and complete trashing of the current American political system. There's like pretty much literally nothing worth saving. It's all terrible.
Things I've learned on TikTok are way beyond my understanding. Like, check this clip right here. Creator is speaking of American needing freedom as well, because they are not the ones in control. Check this.
Who in America? We have to liberate America. This is a big issue for the American people, by the way. So listen carefully. As you know, over decades, US congressmen have been entrapped one after the other by Israel to engage in sexual depravity with children, as Israel was secretly recording them on camera. And those videos are being used by Israel to blackmail these politicians to do anything Israel demands, or else the videos will be leaked to the public. I believe the same blackmail operation has caught many leaders in the UK and the EU as well. And that's why they all act odd and look soulless when they have to defend Israel's crimes, because they are under duress and can't reveal their plight to anyone. By orchestrating this blackmail operation, Israel conducted what is essentially a coup d'etat against the democracy that US politicians represent. Israeli operatives have thus usurped the American people's sovereignty over their own country by blackmailing these representatives to serve not the interests of the American people, but the interests of a genocidal foreign country first. The politicians are then given their marching orders and talking points by Israeli agents under the Israeli organization called AIPAC. Every congressman or woman has a person they call an AIPAC babysitter.
The message is 5 minutes long. You can as well check the original creator so that you get to understand everything that he's talking about. I'm avoiding to be copyrighted for this, it's too long. Kindly subscribe, share your thoughts in the comment section, and also let me know what you think about this compilation. Let's converse in the comment section.